Aloha. Today, I just wanted to um, share my perspectives on the whole flat Earth community thing and like just that little circle of stuff. I'm really not concerned with it. Like, I don't really want to concern myself with that kind of stuff because ultimately this shit don't exist in the first place. Like, it don't even shit don't even like what is the flat earth community? What is it? Like, where is it? Who is it? It's nothing. You just have people. It's the same thing. You're always gonna have to deal with people when you're coming from the human perspective. It's always gonna be, oh, is this person a flat earth? It's not gonna be, is this person a flat earth? It's gonna be, who is this person? It'll always be, where is this person coming from? What is this person's character? What are their intentions? And when you boil it down, excuse me, when you boil it down to the human person, or whatever you want to call it, I just use these as taglines. When you boil it down to the being, then you have an idea of process to movement. Like, the gears can only start turning if all the parts are there, if all the maintenance has been done. And every community is built up of another group of parts, people. So this is where you have natural groups we call cultures, peoples, stretching it out even to like particular styles, like people from the Bay Area or Oakland specifically have this style. Like when you listen to Marshawn Lynch talk about do an interview, or he's talking about whatever, you're like, he's obviously from Oakland. Like, like that dude, that dude's from the town like everybody else. They might not really pick up on it. They'll just kind of like box it into whatever scenario they want to put it in. And that will boil down to the individual. Like, who are you as a person? So just as easily as somebody will only see the world from their own eyes, and somebody will only see you from their own eyes, same goes for somebody will only see information from their own eyes. So my thing is, stop fiddling around with what people are looking at and how they're seeing it, and start really tuning into why they're seeing what they're seeing and who it is that's seeing this, like the experiencer. This is what I said, the human story. It's always going to boil down to that. Like, once you come from, it's kind of obvious to me. It's just like, flat earth is obviously a mechanism of power and control. Like, I'll break it down as simple as possible, because I said this stuff over and over again. Flat earth boils down to power and control. You have people who are in this system who still benefit from power and control. You still have people who are in this system, and meaning also these communities, so-called flat earth communities, that cannot in any world empathize with what other people, generations upon generations, have experienced through their lineage. Like, that's stuff that exists in your emotional timelines. Like I was explaining before, like the difference between talking out of your mouth and speaking from your heart, and the difference between like crying out of your eyes and like crying out of your heart or your blood, like each piece of blood, like crying, like meaning the work that hasn't been done or the trauma that has been experienced because of what? Another program inflicting more power and control over said individual. So this is the abusive relationship that humanity has with itself. So if you can have an abusive relationship, then you can have an abusive relationship with yourself, and ultimately the most abusive relationships come from people who are abusing themselves because they don't know themselves. They have nothing to anchor themselves into. So what happens is those groups run and they set up a team of people who will also agree to those situations, and a lot of those situations involve the destruction of nature, the destruction of humanity, the destruction of the genocide of an entire race of people or group of people. You're going to have ultimate people who are going to be okay with that and people who are not going to be okay with that to the umpteenth degree. They're going to say, yes, let's do this so we can benefit, and then you're going to have people who are going to be like, fuck you for doing that. First of all, that will never happen. The only people that can make that decision is the people who have tapped into a deeper layer of themselves. The decision to encompass that, to be able to be aware of that situation and not just let it be, which is what the New Age community does. They just put it up on a shelf somewhere and say, oh, that's them, that's their karma, that's a reflection of you. This whole experience is a reflection of you. So all this clicking up and all this stuff that's going on with these flat earth community, conscious community, black conscious community, conspiracy, against the globalists, patriots, aggressive progressives, Bernie Sanders people who love Barack Obama, people who love Beyonce, people who love whatever celebrity that they're following. The thing is, the question always comes down to, like, who are you? How far are you willing to go in unveiling the deeper layers of yourself, like this reality, this experience right now? How many questions are you willing to ask? That's the thing. Some people are just like, they wake up in the morning where they have a hunger and a desire to learn, constantly learn more, because it's healing. It's an act of healing. People wake up with that desire, and then you have people who wake up with the desire to not ask questions, because if they ask questions, it will challenge the synthetic foundations that they've created for themselves, or in many cases have been brought up within. So these are those silver spoon fed people who can't empathize with how much change needs to take place. And a lot of these spoon-fed people who can't empathize are projected into your reality on television, so you can be inherently hopeless, because they are convincingly hopeless by carrying out their actions in that system, in that world, and making people be like them whether they take it personally or not, they're actively engaged in not in expanding consciousness, but in contracting it into a ball of copy and paste, or pop culturism, pretty much. This is why your history can't be acknowledged. This is why your psychological post-traumatic slave syndrome disorder and everything else that stems from that can't be acknowledged. Dr. Francis Krauss Welsing's work can't be acknowledged. The idea of, or the understanding that melanated people were across the world before Christopher Columbus or any kind of British colonial centered expeditions were even made. We were already everywhere before the so-called powers that be today even made any moves. This stuff can't be acknowledged. You can't have ancient peoples who have been considered primitive and savage be responsible, or at least connected to, or at least at the very most, at worst, actually, in a direct blood lineage from this kind of power. You remove the power of the pop culture. Everything today is pop culture. White House, Trump. This is why you have an entertainer for a president. And all this stuff is just a big show anyway. It's all a big distraction. So that's comfortable for people. People like CNN. They like the comfort of having the TV on. Sitting down and listening to Patricia's TV shows is equivalent to washing the dishes while having the TV on. It's just comfortable for times, but you're not really, you're like listening to a Nutivia ad or something from the commercial. It's the same effect. It fills the space. But that's the old way. Like, how many times we don't have fucking time to be filling space. We don't have any time for that anymore. But that world is still alive in itself and inside of people, so it's very comfortable. It's going to be the first thing that catches tread, and they got to run with it, because a lot of the people who are built up with that kind of character based upon the personality they have been for their entire lives, thinks with every part of themselves that that's what it is, that what they're doing is right. And in many cases it is, for the people who don't have malintent. The people who are, just doing their thing because they have good hearts and they see stuff that's going on, they've already processed, like, the stuff that needs to go on is going to affect all of us. If this stuff stops, it's going to affect all of us, so we have to set up the logistics of, people who are talking about this, people who are talking about that, people talking about this, and instead of like trying to say, well, this is more righter, we can actually discuss how, the flaws, like debunk everything. See, that's what a lot of things that's not happening with this Christian flat earth stuff that's going on. It's kind of like the way you got to understanding flat earth information is largely from attempting to debunk it. So with something as grand as the flat earth or the heliocentric lie existing, what why is it so difficult to challenge your belief systems that relate to religion or so on and so forth? Well, they can't, because religion is the category, whereas heliocentrism and the globe religion is a subcategory to religion, because it's a religion. So you're facing people who are dealing with attachments, whether it be religious or scientific or spiritual or intellectual or physical attachments. All of them are making up the whole. And you have people who have benefited from these stolen goods for, I hope this doesn't make a lot of sound, these stolen goods for a long time. And in order to avoid that, they'll get just to the level of change that doesn't threaten the foundations of their current belief structures. It's kind of a long sentence, but that's basically what it was. It was like, yeah, because it's the individual's belief structures that are at their heart. So you have like flat earth, then religion, then you have belief structures. Belief. You can have a belief in the deepest, tunnels of any kind of religion. But if you're ultimately a materialistic individual, to whereas you're more your body than your spirit, then something's going to get lost there and off, and the paths they're going to cross, and then they're just going to like not be in sync. This is why you have very materialistic individuals in the church. So they wear all this stuff because it's inherently become a not imbalanced culture as a whole. We have these pastors, driving these fancy cars and having all the nice fancy suits and stuff. It's weird, but that's the reality. And they can't let that go. They can't preach certain perspectives that will challenge the very foundation that keeps them in those fancy suits and fancy cars. So they have to preach, like I said, to the level that doesn't challenge the foundations of their belief systems. Preachers are another version. People are doing this unconsciously, subconsciously. So we learn from it subconsciously, because that's always going on. Consciously is you making decisions. Ooh, you made a decision. And then unconsciously is the shit that's going on. Oh shit, how did that happen? That whole. And then you see 5 years later, oh, that's how that happened. That's why that happened. It's kind of like the timeline of the soul, the mind, and the body. The soul, the mind, and the body. And things take a little longer to materialize in the material realm, but you can think something, and then you can think something better than that, and then that's time. You're creating a more conscious physical timeline with your thoughts. And then when you're connected to your true spirit, that is not channeled through a middleman of some sort or outside of yourself, when you do the work yourself and you're in that space yourself, then it's like being able to speak another language. And that's the language that involves empathy, compassion, so on and so forth. It's like the true essence of love. Whereas, you know, when people talk about, oh, then love will save the day. Love will, it's all you need is like go through the radio station of fucking love songs, and like they just completely destroyed the word, the meaning of the word, like when you feel it. Like when Italians they eat that and they do that whole stereotypical bullshit. When they do that, um, you know, I mean something like right here, like all up in here. When you have that face and you're just like, man, that's the best shit I've ever had. It's fucking delicious. You know, that they just turn that into a hand signal and like a feeling, you know, just gets you. Um, but it's not, you got shit to do with your fingers and your hands. It's how you feel. Like, it's what's happening here. We don't even speak that. That's a language. That's that language I was talking about. Oh, pause. Sometimes you get a call on the old flip phone. And you lose completely what you're talking about. I guess I could rewind it and see where I left off. I didn't bother. I was just gonna finish this video up. I think I was actually already making a second type of interpretation of what I had already said. Oh, and then it went to the soul, the mind, and the body, the vibrations, and time. So yeah, this pop Western society, they're time stealers. You can see how obsessed with time they are. Look at Back to the Future, all the time traveling movies. Time builds up your understanding of monkey evolution. Time builds up your understanding of the Big Bang. Gravity, how long it takes to drop something. The supposed pull of gravity. The evolution of intellect. The evolution of through primitive, their sort of primitive timeline into having an iPhone 10, as if that's is what makes you human, or less caveman. Or see, that's the thing, like yeah, none of this stuff can be acknowledged, and it all deals with like stealing your time. It's a huge thing where you have people now, like the big escape is, oh well, I don't have time for that, man. I ain't trying to think about that, man. I ain't trying to, you know, I don't wanna, I'm not ready for that, and you know, so on and so forth. And that's actually the biggest thing that's holding people back from really challenging. It's like there's some things that you can't really talk about around like Christians. Like that affects time, like religions affect time. University system, public education system, politics, 4 years to vote for another president. You know, this all affects your idea of change and time and so on and so forth. So time, and even in not just the quantity of time, but the quality of time. So even the quality spent in your time affects your time as a whole. like your timeline between physical life and death, and your timeline for transitioning sections of your life. So like processing information, experiences, and moving on. Like these are all parts of time, like the universal time, the time that is the platform for experience. I mean, there's no real way to define it. Each way, somebody's gonna be like, "Oh," you know what I mean? Like, "Oh, yeah." And that's the thing that I was talking about, looping back to Christian ears. I use Christianity as an example because it's obvious. It's like, it's very, like when you talk about Christians, it's very like sensitive. Like, we don't like to talk about that kind of stuff. Like, okay. How did this system come to power? How does it maintain its power? Inside of people. Not the obvious military-industrial complex and fiat currency system and legal name programming and all that stuff. Those are part of it, but your belief systems, how are they programmed? And the question always remains, like, what's your end game? Where are you coming from? You as a person, not you as a representative of the community, not you speaking for this and not speaking for that. You as a fucking person. Where do you fit in all this? In this world of shifting, change. See, these community comfort zones act like as a buffer. People can be safe in there. It's safe in there because now you created another time bubble that's based upon like rules like voting for your president every 4 years. It's the same kind of constraints. Once you buy into that system, you have to subscribe to the rest of that system. And it's not meant to grow and expand most of the time because it's not focused on the empowerment of the individual. It's focused on something externalized outside of the individual, and the relationship between the experience and the experiencer storyline, the natural storyline. See, when you have all these destructive mentalities that are brought into the system, then you have power and control issues. When you don't want to root yourself into the most fertile soils that are beneficial, like, because you have to dig down there, and if you dig down there, you're going to see a lot of the bones that you covered up over there, over time, over these centuries. It's a fine line that they have to walk with talking about slavery and not talking about slavery, talking about racism and not talking about racism, talking about religion and not talking about religion, talking about politics and not I mean, it's your extremes. It's like, where are you willing to go? You already know, you can see that this is a cartoon. It's being played for you on television. They're actually making fun of you with it, turning Trump into a cartoon. They're making it fun. Making fun of people in that world. You're basically just chattel. So, the question is not of a community, the question is of a people. A people and the people. So you have a people. You have people who, this is the thing with the, like I was saying before, they're calibrated differently. People who are Christian flat earthers, they're Christians who happen to be following the interpretations of a flat earth. There's no such thing as a Christian flat earther. There's no such thing as a flat earth community. I mean, you can argue that forever and ever and ever, but these are just comfort zones. When you die and you show up, you'll be like, who are you? I'm a Christian flat earther. Like, what'd you say? What? Say that again. You said, you know where you're at right now, right? No, where am I? You're here. I'm like, alright. It's the here that is no other. Like, what did you say? Say, alright, say it again. Yeah. Christian flat earther. Oh, shit. No, the belief systems are heavier. That's what it boils down to. The belief systems. The belief that you are this thing that can have this belief system. And then you have belief systems that are on top of that. Their whole interpretation of this reality and belief structures that are based on like Christianity are, they have a guideline. They actually have a book. And flat earth is being presented to the people under the pretense that the Bible is like the guidebook for that shit. It's like the map in Time Bandits for the flat earth. Because you're gonna ask, like, what would they try to save most? What's more dear? Religion or the ball earth? Since I know how powerful it is to create a religion, being that heliocentrism is a religion, you can see how powerful that is inside the person. That's where it matters most. I can see how that affected me, these belief systems in heliocentrism. And I was never a Christian or a Catholic or anything like that. I was just like an observer. I went to church a few times, but I was never subscribed to any one belief system like that. So you have these factions that exist, and it's largely based upon one belief system outside of yourself. It's comfortable there. It's like a flat earth community church. But that's control over the individual based upon their relationship to spirit. The relationship that the individual has to spirit is more crucial to power control and enslavement than control over the individual's relationship to the physical earth. Control over the spirit is more powerful than control over the physical. And the control over the mind is the bridge between the two. So you have what's going on now is control over the mind to shut down your relationship to the spirit. And the control over the mind controls the body inherently. So if they control the spirit with religion, control the mind with the university system, and control the body with the water, the poisonous food, and so on and so forth, then you have people that are so far from realizing how deep this program goes that they will defend this program. They will be your warriors. They will defend the empire. How did this system get to what it is today? What is the mainstream religion of sorts? Look at Hollywood. So this is the same way when like addressing these kind of issues is the same kind of approach that I have just by creating a discussion rather than creating some kind of conflict. Conflict comes when somebody says like, "Oh fuck you, you're wrong, get out of here, you dummy, and you're just dumb, just go die, you're just dumb." And then you're like, alright, nice discussion. But you can't have that with people who are locked in their belief systems and who are not open to any kind of questioning of that belief system. And that is a big problem. That affects time. These sensitive like tiers based upon belief systems. It's destructive ultimately. And when you have this idea of Christian flat earther, you're just saying, I got a lot of work to do. This is how much work I got to do. Not saying it's a bad thing, it's just a joke, it's just funny. But the more labels that you wear, the more work you're saying that you need to get done. Because as it goes on, it gets simpler. But all those labels are designed to protect your investments in your reality, ultimately. So that's why it always goes down to the question, like, what are you talking about here? This is control. They have control over your mind, your body, and your spirit. They have control over your everything. Even your idea of revolution, even your idea of change. Your conscious communities, your new age community, it's all packaged for you. It's like, well, yeah, welcome, just come on in. Just take a seat. We'll take care of the rest. Oh, thank you. I did not want to do that work. Oh, no worries. We'll give you the answers. Here it is. Just think like this. Da-da-da-dun. Here it is. Here you are. Just think like this. Do-do-do-dun. You made it. Welcome. Think like this. And then somebody's gonna be like, what the fuck did they just say? Did you hear what I just heard? Yeah, I heard that shit. You're always dealing with people. People. Who are gonna fail safe to a belief system. Because it's just kind of like the default. Yeah, it's a default. So flat earth community ain't no... These are all just like toys, man. Like, fuck. If you haven't realized that, so you're always going to be faced with people. People like people. And you're going to be faced with the question always, like, what's the meaning? Like, why'd you wake up this morning? Like, what is it that's going on in the day that, like, why are you here? What work do you have to do? What things do you have to paint? What things do you have to say? What recipes do you have to, put together? And what are you baking today? Like what is that world? And then you realize, like, the programming that's out there, it's designed to keep you in a box, like in a label, in these time labels. So you had, like, I had an old school friend of mine, like my pops' friend. Uh, he asked me the other day, we were coming back, he's like, so, when you getting married? And I was just like, what the hell? What kind of old ass question is that? But he's an old school person. Just kind of like, but that's people's worlds. That's like their whole world. It's like, this is, graduate from high school, graduate from college, get a job, get the American dream. It's just like, so you know how ridiculous it is out here. It's hard enough to make close friends, let alone get in a close relationship. So you can get into a relationship, it might seem close, but you're only as close as you make it. You can be in a relationship and then be cool because it's a cool relationship, but that might not be who you are as a person. See, I can speak on this from looking back at my old self and old relationships. Not all of them, but just who I was in the relationship, just like learning dynamics of yourself and relationships. There's no meaning in a relationship if there's no meaning in the individuals. And that's just accepted in this society, this pop society right now, where they're just like, well, either you do this way or you don't complain. That's what they say, basically, in that system. Because this is better. This is the best in the world. It's better than everything else, and there's nothing better than this. That's why they call this a first world country. You don't want to be like a third world country, do you? Well, then don't complain. And they're just like, wait, didn't you make those countries third world countries? Like, hey, what's up with Mr. Smarty Pants over here? And then you have people in relationships and they don't know, they're not in relationships with themselves. And you have people making babies. It's like, you're bringing life into you're bringing, and you're like, what's the meaning of, why this life is showing up here? Like, not to say that there's anything wrong with, having babies just 'cause, whatever. You just have an inclination to have a baby. And I don't see anything inherently wrong with it. I'm talking about the programming that comes along in the mainstream reality. The very definite programming that's there. And then, you ask yourself, does that programming have any meaning into it? Or is this just existing for an effect? So all the action movies where you see the love and romance, is that for your entertainment or is that for a psychological effect? You'd have to be completely naive to think that it's not for an effect before it's for entertainment. If you think this is for entertainment before it's for effect, you have a problem. You have a definite problem. So the lack of meaning, the lack of purpose, the lack of definition in your reality is designed to have an effect, not for your entertainment. The individuals who are aware of this information will still carry on with that effect are usually the most highest paid people in any industry, because they have influence over that effect over you. So the mainstream kind of tone, like I was talking about this the other casters, the reporters, the way they talk to you in the morning, when they do that whole spiel, it's designed to shrink you into that world and then make you feel that, oh, come on in, have a seat. We're going to tell you all the news you need to know. We're going to inform you. We're going to be the ones who let you know when it's safe to get out there on those roads. We're going to let you know that it's safe to get out there and hike that trail. Because we're your friends. They're not your friends. Never were. Never will be. And all of that is designed to make you think that this thing is worth saving. If you haven't processed, if you can't get past that, you're done. Because you're not there. You're not alive. If you're not processing the acknowledgement of the way the system came to be, then you're trying to save a dead system. And if you're trying to save a dead system, then you're dead. Wasting the waking dead. Wasting your energy. Whether it's in the idea of doing something for the betterment of this or for the downfall, whatever it is you think you're doing, it's always going to boil down to the individual. It's always going to go down to the person and their relationship to the physical and the non-physical, their soul, the mind, and the body. How efficiently, not quickly, how efficiently they remove the density, the mind control, the conditioning of all layers of themselves, the soul, the mind, and the body. Clicking up is a safety zone. It's a rest area. You're going to create a team of Avengers and hit the ball with the flat plate. Just like, gotcha. Hey, globe heads, Aha. You know, doesn't make any sense. Because it's always going to go down to the individual and their relationship with pretty much everybody, which everything. But there's no meaning there in the world that prepackages your life for you. Like when that baby shows up and you're just like, you know, what am I going to teach this baby? What am I going to... What kind of foundation will this being have? Oh, I just want them to be cool with, you know, what's going on. You're going to have to tell them all that conditioning. It's harder to explain to them, possibly, that you don't know. Secondly, that you're going to have to disagree with all of your peers. That's what you're asking people into these belief systems when you start talking about flat earth. And that's the pretty much the gist of it. If there's no meaning there of any value, I mean, there's obviously meaning there in existence, but value in the sense of something as a springboard to propel into the next. It's really just a platform. It's just a system. So that kind of atmosphere, if that's how the relationship that you have with life and bringing life into this reality, it will it will be a trigger or a domino effect on every other relationship that you have. So your parents have that relationship with you, their parents have their relationship with them. It's all external belief systems. You know, how quickly, how efficiently can I get this kid to believe these belief systems? Because that's what my parents did to me. And then, you know, rinse and repeat. And all of the stuff that has been caked on in their worlds over all those times doesn't go away. It just kind of lingers around, and it attaches itself to everything else. So if somebody like that, deep into those belief systems, stumbles upon flat earth, well, of course, everything that they see in the flat earth realization will be laced with Christian outlining or belief systems. And then boom, you have a Christian flat earther. So if you're challenging yourself enough to challenge the globe, what's going on? What's going on with the whole religious thing? But that's why I said it's bigger. It's a bigger category because it's closer to the heart. It's closer to the soul. It's closer even to the mind at this point, because people still don't even know what the hell's going on. If it is flat or if it's a dome or whatever it is, there's still speculation on the specifics of what's going on here. So the religion or the connection with the spirit will always be uppermost in people's reality, like vibratorily speaking. Like it's always going to be happening faster. It'll be a closer relationship, so people are not going to let that go. It's easy to let go of the globe. It was never yours in the first place, but your religion is very much yours. It's tapped into very much a deep part of yourself. Childhood, family, spirit, dreams even for some. So that's going to be a harder egg to crack. But it's not you doing it, it's the people doing it. It's like, you have to crack it yourself. You can only help somebody do it by like yelling from your side of the egg. Hey, you hit it at this angle. Like no, this is how alright, you trying it. And they try it and it works. Oh, and they break through and then you realize you're in another space that you gotta break out of. You keep breaking out of it. But if your comfort zone is based upon, somebody who's been comfortable for that for so long, this community we call Christianity, Catholicism, Judaism, Islam, Buddhism, Hinduism, whatever it is, whatever belief systems that you have, they're fine, but they're not more of you than you are of you. Like, you're you. You're always going to be. That's why I say, like, when you show up, wherever it is, and they're like, what's going on? And like, I'm a Christian flat earther. And like, okay, sit over there in the Christian flat earther section.